Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we give you the strategies, the mindsets, and of course, the frameworks to building your own 6 and even 7-figure coaching business. I am, of course, your host, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the king of the Caribbean. Dr. Karl Bryan is in the house. Doctor, welcome.
Not a doctor, ladies and gentlemen. Road Dog, how are you doing, bud? We missed you, pal.
I'm good. I saw some of the comments. You guys are doing these sort of, what are they? Like, you've been to, where was it, Phoenix, and you've been to a couple different spots, Atlanta, I think. And I saw somebody post something about the king of the Caribbean. I was like, oh my gosh. Pretty funny.
That's you, buddy. That's all you, man. That's all you, bud. I saw a dolphin this morning out on the sea, dude. There you go. Took a little video.
Yeah, I was not see a dolphin this morning, and you hear me.
You didn't?
No, it is. You know, the funny thing is, Shiggs, that when I think you were here for like a hot minute, and I think that was the extent of that 48 hours was like the only winter we had this year. Unbelievable. There you go.
Well,
there you go.
Dolphins are coming. Get out on that lake. You never know.
Speaking of winter, how's this for transition point? The Olympics just ended. I wanted to. Did you watch it all? Like, what were your thoughts on the Olympics besides Lindsey Vohn's leg just getting absolutely shattered? My God, that poor woman. Jeez.
Yeah, Lindsey Vonn.
Yeah,
buddy. You want to know my thoughts on the Olympics?
Yeah. What's your hot take?
I'm going to tell you, you bring up like Lindsey Vonn, like the poor thing, right? Like she can't, well, look, so I by the way, I thought they were awesome. Of course, Canada lost the hockey game, which, not going to lie, tough to get my head around. But anyway, but at the end of the day, you know what? It's good. You know the way I see it. It's good for hockey. And I'm a pure hockey guy. So everybody in the US is talking, and not the world is talking hockey, like Miracle on Ice. So that was pretty amazing, depressing. But so professional, I like Olympic athletes, right? You could just say professional athletes. Like you've got people in the beginning of their career, the middle of their career, and the end of their career, right? Well, those in the beginning and the middle are semi-fine because they keep, what do they do after the Olympics? They go right back to the gym, right back to training, and they just keep going a little, hopefully, probably a little bit more inspired, right? But those at the end, and I would say Lindsey Vonn falls into that. Like I prayed for her. I you know what I mean? Like she like screwed her knee up right before the Olympics and then just couldn't let it go. And then you saw her dad came out and he like basically announced her retirement. You know what I mean? No doubt we can all see through that. Like the poor guy's just there going, baby, you've done everything you could. Like, I mean, she's an amazing athlete, accomplished so much. Anybody else would put their hand up to be able to say they were, you know, a tenth of the accomplishments of Lindsey Vonn, but she just can't quite. It feels that way. I don't know Lindsey Vonn, right? I do know she was engaged to a professional hockey player, PK Subban, which that ended, and that these things happen, right? No big deal. But at the end of the day, the poor thing, like, you know what I mean? I feel, and then she almost got her leg amputated. It just, it defines the person at the end of their career, right? And I'll tell you, like even those that win the gold medal, they go on because the frame is that they got the gold medal and it's going to solve all of their problems. And guess what happens? They win the gold medal. They got it. They get on the plane. They end up home and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of in the exact same spot, despite the fact some sign all kinds of crazy deals to do. But it doesn't solve the problems that they think. And what happens? They fall into deep depression, suicidal thoughts, always? Absolutely not. But it's challenging. So I just, I mean, it's not dissimilar to a professional athlete. At the end of their career, you step on a rink, you step on a field, and there's 20, 50, 100,000 people cheering. And then what happens? It all goes away. It can be really, really challenging. And then, not to mention, you introduced me to a professional athlete, and I'll introduce you to somebody that became a professional athlete to prove their parents wrong all the time. No, a good percentage of the time, absolutely. Specifically their fathers, by the way. And that just kind of I'm trying to frame up like the individual that has that level of success. They're often kind of, chasing ghosts and this sort of thing. So it can be a little bit challenging. But anyways, I thought the Olympics were awesome. It's funny, the Olympics, like they're 2 weeks long. And the first week of the Olympics, I always tend to like knock it into it. And then the second week comes and I'm like right into it. Next thing you know, boom, it's over. And it can be, right, whatever. Anyway, so I just, there's people in the beginning of their career, middle of their career, and the end of their career. Those at the end of their career, I hope they can manage their psychology. And I would dare say that doesn't often happen. And then they win the medal and they think that that's going to solve all their problems. That's not the way it goes. And often, again, what they're trying to do, they're fighting against, trying to, kind of prove their parents wrong kind of thing. And then that can be a bad frame. And that is professional athletes a lot of the time. Introduce me to a professional athlete who had a really good career and then it ended. Believe me, they will tell you it can be a tough deal. So what they got to do, and why, it's the same when they land on the moon. They come back and they're alcoholics, drug addicts, suicidal thoughts, deep depression. Why? Because in order to accomplish something at that level afterwards is really, really challenging. So they live for a good percentage of the time, chasing that feeling and chasing that drug and chasing that dopamine, that there's nothing quite like stepping on a stadium and having 100,000, whatever number of thousands of people cheering for you. It's not going to happen working at Microsoft. It's not going to happen working at Amazon. It is not. So they gotta, man, it needs to be, you gotta fall in love with the process, not the destination. So they gotta go back to training and then, find something else that's fulfilling. Can be very challenging. You can't find anything that fulfilling as a general rule. So anyways, you brought up Lindsey Vaughn. That I hope she goes on to have a wonderful life because she deserves it. She accomplished an amazing amount. So there you go, Shoots. That's
you mentioned you don't get into it for the first half and then the second half. It's like me, the podcast. First half, I'm just checked out. Second half, I'm in. I'm all. Listen, we got to now this thing. I feel like you're in a rabbit hole, sort of a moose station. I've got to rein you in. Listen, the one thing I wanted to say was you talked about that it was brilliant, and I hope everyone caught this. And that is, what do they do right after the Olympics? They go back to training. Like, the perfect example, and somewhere where we did win gold, curling gold, baby. Let's go.
boom.
What are those gold medalists doing right now? They're competing in the national championship. They're at the Briar right now. They played last night. So like there's no days off. And I think there's a very important point. You go, you do a local live event, you're all pumped up, you just signed on 3 to 4 new clients.
Yep.
Okay. When's the next one? Like don't go be celebrating and dial it back. Get back to training, get back to doing what you need to do. And I think that's a very, very important piece.
So what you got to do, so when you sign a client, the best time to sign a client is right after you just signed a client, right? So you got to hit the gas pedal. So the elite hit the gas pedal after success. And then, the non-elite, with fear of sounding harsh, that's not the goal. But what they do is they fall asleep. They get the client and they celebrate for too long. Right. And it's like, no. This is the time to hit the gas pedal. The best time to sign up a coaching client is right after you just signed a coaching client. The best way to fill a room is immediately after you've just filled the room, whilst also looking after the other dynamics.
With that then, so we're talking essentially about keeping that momentum going. Can you talk about that again? Like, it's not just because that is the issue. People get the momentum and then they stop. So getting and keeping momentum. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. I say it might be frustrating. Like, think frustratingly when you want to get rocking, it's important to be accepting of the fact that it's a fast ride downhill, but slow ride uphill, right? So think of like downhill mountain biking. You got to go up the mountain in order to get the drug and the dopamine and the excitement of going down. It's like the stock market. My dad always said, bulls go up the stairs and bears go out the window, right? So one fast, the other slow, as in the market goes slowly up and then it comes crashing down. And by the way, just look at the stock market over the last short period of time. But by the way, that's going to continue till the end of time. And by the way, that's not my dad saying. That's a very popular saying, but I remember him saying it to me and I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Bulls go up the stairs and bears go out the window. I explained a 3-step process on a podcast here over the last couple of weeks. So I don't want to rehash that, but have a look at if you're interested. And it's a great process that I think you should, if you're in this quicksand and you feel like you're stuck a little bit, it's likely because you're trying to stay in comfort while also trying to grow, right? So scared to pick up the phone, but you want clients. Okay. Those two do not complement one another, right? So one's comfort and one's trying to go. You want to get clients at the networking group, but you feel cautious to go up and talk to somebody new. Okay, I'm sorry. Comfort, growth, those two opposing forces, right? You want to watch your kids grow up while building an 8-figure business. Generally speaking, those. And by the way, that's not to say you can't build an 8-figure business while being a great father, a great mother, a great parent. Not saying that. I can tell you that it comes with its challenges. It'd be crazy to think anything other. I got a 12-year-old daughter. You want to get good grades while also playing with your friends all day and not doing your homework, right? Opposing forces. Just think of, okay, so I want you to think of, you got like a 2.5-foot metal bar in front of you, right? It's held out in front, and then you have your left hand on the left side, the right on the other, and your hands are shoulder width apart, right? Well, the left side is growth, and then the right side is comfort. What are you going to do? You bend that down, like the metal bar bends in the middle as you try to accomplish growth and comfort at the same time, right? Translation, not good. You end up with a bent bar and opposing forces coming against one another. What you need to do is have everything going in the right direction. You got to choose growth. You got to choose comfort, live with it, decide, and then go in the right direction, right? And by the way, that's a perfect example of stress. Okay. 2 conflicting thoughts at the same time that oppose one another. And with that, remember, depression is the past, anxiety is the future. If you accept that to be reality, you go, okay, Karl, what's the solution? And the solution is presence here and now, right? But getting and keeping momentum, what you got to do, you got to set a goal and you got to move towards it, right? Like if you want to get in shape, one of the best things that you can do is go put your name down for the 10-mile race, right? Well, what's going to happen? It's in 3 months' time. What's going to happen between now and the next 90 days? You're going to get your running shoes out and start running. Why? Because you got a 10-mile race that you're going towards. So you book the event. What you got to do, I always say, when you're going to book an event, you got to book 10 of them, right? Go to the chamber, walk it at whatever venue you choose. Don't book one, book 10 of them. Why? It's the same with, putting your name down for the triathlon or the 10-mile race, etc. You gotta create a dynamic where you've got to do something. It's kind of like creating a deadline and around. To think of the Ironman or the 10-mile race or the next event that's coming up next week or in 14 days as a deadline that needs to be accomplished. That's one of the best ways of getting and keeping momentum, is to put yourself in a position where you've got no other option, right? I don't know. What do you think, Shoots? Help?
Yeah, obviously, when you're building momentum, you're building something big. There's one word that comes to my mind, and I want you to sort of elaborate on it, and that is staff. Like you ain't doing this alone.
Yeah.
Like when I say staff, like what? Because man, oh man, there's my brain's going in so many different directions on it because now everyone's talking AI and replacing
Yep.
staff, but let's just exclude that for now. When I say staff, what comes up for you?
Yeah. If you have big goals, doing it all yourself is the wrong frame. It's not going to get you there, right? Um, and of course, unless you're arbitrarily 60 years old, you've made some dough, you're comfortable. Um, what's the goal that you set for yourself, right? Like you want to make $200,000 a year and have no staff to deal with. You know what I mean? If you're dialed in and that's what you want, that's how you define a great life, a great business in the next 5 years, then just dial in and you can absolutely do it without, right? But big goals take leverage, people, money, resources, right? I'll tell you, with dealing with staff, here's something that I've learned. Harshness does not work, right? Rather than harshness, think firmness in a loving way, right? Be firm, but don't be harsh. And by the way, why? Because others will treat you and your company the same way that you treat them. And they feel like they're being treated harshly. Guess what? They're going to treat you harshly, treat your company harshly, and presumably your clients harshly. Is that what you want? Absolutely not. It's like, excellence is impossible to define, at least for me. But when you see it, you can't deny it, right? So like it just can't be denied when it's happening and it's right there in front of you, right? So you build a company the same way that you build a professional team. How? Elite people. That's why like they trade, you watch professional football, professional baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever cricket, whatever. They will trade 5 players for one. And you go back over the last 100 trades, over, last 1,000 trades over the last number of years, the one that gets the single top talented individual is the one that wins the trade with predictability. Always? Absolutely not. Generally? Absolutely. The person that gets the best trade or the best player, the best athlete, ends up winning the trade. Like so you think about, I've talked about this for years, first round, when you're thinking about bringing on staff, one staff member can be worth 5 staff members when you pick the right individual that demonstrates excellence, right? So you want to collect the same way that a football team, a baseball team, a hockey team builds, and a basketball team is they first round draft picks. You just have a look, like the first overall pick, it's going to be Mendoza, that quarterback, right? Like if they traded him, they would get a package of 10 players and draft picks for the one pick. Why? Because the guy's elite. And again, the person who wins the trade is the one who gets the best player. And then, by the way, if you ask me why that is, it's because high tide lifts all boats, right? So that one Wayne Gretzky, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, etc., they bring all the players around them up. That's what ends up happening, right? And by the way, I can't talk about staff and then not talk about hiring slow and firing fast. We've all heard that one countless times. The question is, are you demonstrating it? Are you living it? And then shoots of just staff. I think conflict comes to mind, right? You've got to be the bigger person in conflict. If you're going to deal, if you've had lots of staff, and then you've had lots of challenges with staff, you haven't handled conflict very well, right? And by the way, conflict will happen. You want to accomplish big things. You want to, knock off big goals. You're going to have some conflict, both within yourself, within the company, with staff, with managers, with, different dynamics of people working together. It's a 101, right? So when conflict happens, what do you got to do? What do you got to do? You got to treat it with sympathy. You got to treat it with love. You got to treat it with support, as opposed to harshness, right? It's very similar to coaching clients, quite frankly. Again, when things are not going well and they want to cancel, they want to do this, they want to do that, like, how do you handle it? Like your persistence is a measure of your self-esteem. So when your coaching client wants to cancel, how you handle that will tell me all I need to know about you as a business person and about the passion for your company, etc. You don't, put your head in your hands and go to sleep. You got to do the exact opposite. You got to get to work. The number of coaching clients that I had back in the day where we had like let's call it that come to Jesus meeting, you know what I mean? Like where you got to lay the cards on the table. And then after having that, And it's like, look, at the end of the day, I can't want this for you more than you want it yourself. In fact, Shoots, I just coached on the weekend. We're in playoffs in our little hockey league. Is exactly what I said to the kids after the game, right? Because I told them I need them all ready, and I need them ready 5 minutes before the game, because I want to pump them up. I want to talk to them about strategy, and I want to, create a dynamic where they get onto that rink and they are ready to go through walls, as opposed to, the opposite. Well, so guess what? Before the game, and specifically, may or may not have been my star player, was not ready and was not in that meeting. Why? Because he wasn't ready. And it wasn't ready because he wasn't there on time. He wasn't ready because he just wasn't prepared. So, and by the way, the first half of the game, he didn't play very well. I may or may not have grabbed him, right, by both ears and looked at him, and I said, stare me in the eyes. I said, look at me. I go, are you with me? Or are you with the team? Or are you not with the team today? I need you to dial in, right? Because it was 0-0 at halftime, and we shouldn't have been 0-0 at halftime. Guess what happened? The second half, he was frankly lights out. So after the game, what I'm getting at is what I said to him is I said, guys, look, I can't want this for you, right? I think I can pull, a little bit more out of you so that you guys can accomplish the goal, which the goal is to win the league championship. And by the way, is that all Is everything riding on that? No. But what everything, in my opinion, is riding on, is I say to them, every single time you come off the rink, and at the end of every single game, we can't control the outcome, but what we can control is our own effort. And I said, so what I need you to do is after every shift, say, I gave it all. And at the end of the game, say, I gave it all. And if you're able to say that, win, lose, or draw, it's okay. But there's nothing worse than at the end of the game to say, I didn't give it my all. I left a little bit to be, Like I didn't leave it all on the rink. And by the way, what am I saying for your coaching clients? You can't control whether they do or do not do the work, and you can't control whether they do or do not stay with you for 3 years and beyond. What you can control is your own effort, your own, Like you can control your effort. Do you show up? Do you show up prepared? Do you, are you prepared for the coaching call? Are you doing a little bit of extra work when they're not there? Remember, a professional athlete gets paid to train, right? Like we mentioned the Olympics earlier. I don't need to watch Lindsey Vonn train to know that she is just unbelievably disciplined, consistent, and elite in the gym. Otherwise, guess what? You just don't accomplish what she accomplished, and nor do the other gold medalists and silver. And even the people, even the guy that comes 8th, 9th, 10th, the gal that comes last, right? They're in the Olympics. They are elite. So anyway, so that's what I said to the kids, and I got them kind of pumped up. But I did, honestly, what I said, my wife's there listening in because she's wondering what the hell I'm doing with these kids. And I just said to them, I said, kids, do you want me, like, at the end of the day, I'm on the team too, right? I said, do you want me to show up at the highest level? Like, do you? And they honestly, these kids want it, right? Like these kids, and they played really well. We ended up winning the game, blah, 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 blah. But I just said to them, I said, do you guys, I can just mail it in, and I can just kind of show up, and I can just open the gate and let you guys out. And when you come off, I can either get in your, kind of face, right, and pump you up a little bit in between shifts, or I can just leave it to, whatever does and does not happen. Well, they, unequivocally said to me, Coach, we want you to give everything that you got. We're going to give you everything we got. And I said, okay, then guess what? That's what I'm going to do. That's what I want you to do. And if we win, if we lose, that's fine. But I can tell you this, when it's all said and done, I'm not going to be able to say that I didn't give everything for you guys to the best of my ability. So anyway, maybe get a little deep there among Shoots. But and again, these kids are like, this is not the highest level of hockey that you're ever going to see, but it doesn't matter. They want to win. And then the other thing is, having their kids, right? 12 years old, 13 years old, etc. What's fun? The truth is winning. Winning is significantly funner than losing. Having coaching clients stay with you for 3 years is significantly more fun than having clients to stick around for 90 days. What's the gap? I just explained it, right? Your level of commitment, your level of knowledge, your level of preparedness, your level of resilience and discipline and consistency. And remember, when your coaching client wants to cancel, like that is where your self-esteem is measured in your persistence and your drive to be able to save the day and help them. And not just when they're, by the way, don't wait until they're canceling to all of a sudden dialing it in, do it the whole time. Anyway, so your biggest accomplishments will come through other people. It reminds me of my goalie, Max. Like, he played unbelievable. And I told at the beginning of the game, because this is all percentage thing. And I said to him at the beginning of the game, yeah, we need to win this game. But I said, Max, you know what we really need? We need a shutout. We need like 1 goal against, because it's a ratio thing. Well, guess what? Our goalie, he played pretty well. They got 1 goal, but he played absolutely lights out. And but at the end of the day, I told him, look, this is what we need, and all you can do is your best, kid. But I want you to know this is what we're trying to accomplish. So your greatest accomplishments will come through other people. If our goalie didn't play lights out, it's not 0-0 at halftime. I'll give you the red hot tip, right? Like, we're down 2, if not 3, and then we had to come back. But it was 0-0. We weren't playing our best. The second half, they played absolutely lights out. And it's like you have a client, and let's say you demonstrate what I'm describing, the discipline, the consistency, the preparedness. Well, 1 client can send you 10 referrals. It's like, get a coaching client who's an accountant, right? What do? Don't do your best. You do what it takes. You get the accountant. Yes, I know they're difficult to get as coaching clients. Yes, they are. You are correct. But if you do get the accountant, they could send you 5 to 50 referrals. They could send you 5 to 50 clients. If you do lights out with the accountant, you effectively, what I'm describing here is you sell through instead of to. I don't know. Is that meaningful for you? And again, don't do your best. You do what it takes. You grab them by the ears. You look them in the eyes. I wouldn't do exactly that with the accountant, by the way, but you get it metaphorically. You do what it bloody takes. And when the coaching client isn't showing up, and the coaching client isn't putting in their best effort, and the coaching client isn't following the roadmap and implementing the market dominating position and controlling their costs, and, creating the bundle, like the happy meal, and the additional products and services like the McRib, the McPizza, and then the McFlurry, they're not doing that. Okay. You got to grab them by the ears metaphorically and say, look, I can't want this for you. I need you to want this. You keep telling me you want to build this multiple 7-figure business and create a legacy and create this opportunity for your clients, but I don't see you following through. Like, let's go. I can't want this more than I can't want this for you. You need to want it. Anyway, shoot. So that's my raw pitch. You should have been there in the huddle sheets.
Well, I'm not going to, there's somewhere I want to go with what you just said. I just need just a quick point of clarification. You said your goalie had a shutout at halftime.
Yeah.
What? Sorry. What? Are you playing hockey, or are you playing soccer, or
hockey? Yeah, hockey. But
okay, you guys have halftime down there for hockey, or
yeah, we have. Yeah, it's two halves. It's not full periods. It's roller hockey. It's 2 half shits.
All right. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about right now. Anywho, you had mentioned building through. You're essentially describing a JV. Like, can you go into that just for a quick sec? Because again, the absolute quickest, best way to building your business to exponential growth is through JV. Yeah. So let's not skip over that too quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Like that, you got to sell. You think selling through instead of to. Okay. So I take on the builder. I'm kind of selling to him, and he's got, I'm going to help him, and I'm going to charge him X amount per month. And hopefully it's going to be a wonderful relationship and last a long, long time. But he doesn't, he's not going to have, he's not like the accountant where he's got 500 small business clients that he's dealing with. Right. So JV, we're looking for folks that are, that we're selling through, not to, right? So B2B folks. And what I would say is I often hear that I went to the accountant, I made the proposal, and then the accountant promised to send out the email, promised to, introduce me to X, Y, and Z, and then they never followed through. And I promised them that I was going to give them 20%. I was going to give them this, I was going to give them that. And I just don't get why they're not saying yes. Right. Well, what you want to do is you want to take on the accountant, You want to treat them and think of them as being your best client ever. Like, let's just say you charge $1,500 a month as the frame. I want you to picture this as a client who's paying you $5,000 a month. Like, I would imagine if you have a client that's paying you $1,500 a month and you have a client that pays you $5,000 a month, you're going to do significantly more work and be a little bit more, more engaged, etc., with the $5,000 a month client. I want you to think of the JB, despite the fact they're not paying you 5 cents potentially, that they are like a $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month client, right? So what do you do with a client? You solve their problems. What's the biggest problem that the accountant has? Okay. Again, I wrote a book on accounting. I get dozens and dozens and dozens of accountants as clients. I teach a 4-day training on how to read financial statements and find your high-end consulting fees prior to starting with your high-end coaching client, which, by the way, is 10 times easier to do than you probably think if you're the, not the accountant type. But that said, so what's the biggest problem that the accountant has? With predictability, what happens is they have, 500 clients. And the vast majority, like 480 of them, what they do is they come in once a year, generally about 3 months after the year is over, and it's rush, 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 rush. And what do? They got to get their taxes in. They want to be compliant. They don't have to pay, late fees, etc. And they want to pay the government so that they stay out of jail and that sort of stuff. Pretty straightforward, right? And what the accountant does is they charge roughly $2,400 a year to do that for the landscaping client, $2,400 a year, right? Well, and that's just like, that's a once a year thing. Well, if every client came to see the accountant 4 times a year to get proper financial statements, not to mention, 10 times, 12 times a year, like monthly, there wouldn't be tax season, because the numbers are already in, and now it's just a push of the button. Like, you follow that, right? Like, so you don't need to do a bunch of rush work at tax season, which that's the bane of the existence for any accountant. Just ask them. If everybody got their books done, and had proper financial statements throughout the year, tax season wouldn't exist. So if that's and that's a huge problem for the accountant, probably their biggest problem, right? Well, what do? I say, well, do this, Mr. Accountant. Take me for a test drive. You got how many clients? 500 clients. I don't want 500 clients. I don't want 250 clients. I don't want 100 clients. I want you to take me for a test drive. What's that look like? I want you to send me 3. Not your best, not your worst. Send me 3. Here's what I will do. I will make sure that the 3 clients that I deal with, they will not participate in tax season in any way, shape, or form, because I will personally guarantee that they will come in to see you at least quarterly, if not monthly, to get proper financial statements. And then if you were to ask me why, it's because I need a scoreboard. Imagine you came to my hockey game and you didn't know, there was no scoreboard, you wouldn't know it was tied 0-0. And you'd be wondering why the coach is on the other end of the, the rink going crazy with all the kids, pumping them up and getting a little bit demanding and firm, not harsh, but firm. You'd be wondering why the hell is he doing that? Because you don't know the score. Well, a financial statement is a scoreboard. It tells you, what does Warren Buffett say? If you don't know, if you don't have a scoreboard, you don't know the winners from the losers. Okay. When you're you're investing in a business, that sounds like a really, really bad idea. So the accountant sends me 3 people. When somebody comes to see you quarterly, 10, 12 times a year, guess what happens to the accountant's fees? They start charging 5, 10, 25 grand a year. Do you think the accountant likes that? Yes. And by the way, speak to an accountant and they'll tell you that's the work that they like to do. They don't like doing the rush stuff. And then, you owe $45,000 to the government, right? What they want to do is they want to do the financial statements and actually do the work that they were trained to do. So I work with the accountant. He gives me 3 people, takes me for a test drive. I'm going to charge them, let's just call it $2,000 a month for the sake of the argument, 5 grand, 10 grand, whatever you're going to charge them. Call it $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year. And the 3 people that I work with are not going to participate in tax season. And by the way, he or she are charging significantly more for those 3 clients. Help me with what you think is going to happen next. He's going to say, look, I got another 3 for you. And then I got another 3. How many can you take on, Carl, is what's going to end up happening, provided you do it right. So you got to treat them like, again, a $5,000 a month, 60 grand a year client, in that you want to solve their biggest problem, and that's the way to solve it for the accountant. So that's the way I form a joint venture with an accountant. Very importantly, they got 100 clients, they got 250 clients. You're not looking for 100 or 250. You're just looking for a test drive. Send me 3 that sign up. You're going to make significantly more from your clients. You keep all of your money. I'm going to charge them $2,000 a month on a month-to-month agreement. At any stage they want to cancel, I'm not going to lock them into any agreement. Look, I'm really good at what I do. So I'm going to put them in a month-to-month agreement. If they stay with me, they stay with me. And if they don't, they don't. So that's going to make the accountant feel comfortable that he's not going to put himself or herself in a position where all of a sudden they can have an issue with their client, right? Anyway, so I keep my money. The accountant keeps his money. And this is the way that I get 90 referrals from an accountant instead of just 1 or 2. And then, by the way, go business broker. What's the biggest problem that a business broker has? You know, and 80% of the businesses are, it's not that they're not going to sell, it's that they would never sell in a million years. Why? 3 things. Not profitable, not systematized, and 2, owner reliant, right? Well, guess what you're going to do? Business broker is going to speak to a business that wants to sell. And it's like, look, I don't know if you're, you know what I mean? I don't think this business is going to sell right now, but let me introduce you to my buddy Carl, my buddy Dave, my friend Susie. She will help you. And what's going to happen is we'll get this thing framed up in such a way so that it'll be ready to exit for significantly more than the price tag we're going to put on it today. And by the way, in a perfect world, remember, you want to build a business you could sell tomorrow, but don't want to. But let's not jump into that. Don't be careful with that one with the business broker, because he or she might not like the sound of that. But that's the higher level frame. But at the end of the day, I'm going to, so the business broker is now going to get a steady flow of businesses that are legitimately going to be able to be sold, right? And how do you do that? You install an operating system, upsell, downsell, cross-sell, proper upfront offer, etc. What did I just do? I solved the biggest problem for the business broker. And again, I say, how many people do you speak to? Blah, 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 blah. Take me for a test drive. Don't send me your best. Don't send me your worst. Don't send me everybody you ever met. Send me 3 businesses and let's see how I do. Let's let the results speak for themselves. Maybe I'm awesome. Maybe I'm terrible. Let's both find out, right? And no doubt you could see how that language makes them feel comfortable. You know what? This guy's worth having a shot. Or then promotional sales. What's the problem with that? Like they sell X amount of pens and X amount of t-shirts and then they don't get any reorders. Well, it's like, look, I think that, companies brand, if you want, how do you sell a $10 t-shirt, $100 t-shirt, and then $1,000 t-shirt? And yes, t-shirts sell for like $1,000, which probably blows me away, right? Well, brand is the one word, right? Well, I think that promotional materials help them build brands. By the way, that's not the solution to branding, to be clear, but it's certainly one of the things that I would do. I'd say, okay, so don't send me your best. Don't send me your worst. Send me some folks that, do a decent promotional order. And then I will make sure that they're moving this stuff, they're merchandising, and I'll try get them to come back to buy a bunch more promotional stuff from you, right? Because I'm a big fan of branding and I'm going to help them brand while also doing all the more important stuff. Remember, profit's a domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. You want to have merchandising and you want to have pens and you want to have, cameras and you want to have nootropics and you want to have like cool stuff that the client can sell. Well, they're going to have to get the money from somewhere. Where do they get it? Profit's the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. You want to build a big company? Building a big company, remember, they want to get big so they can get rich, and that's not the way the story tends to end. You want to get big as the result of success. Okay, so anyway, so promotional sales, that's the way I'm doing it. Or maybe a better example is ad sales. What's the problem with the ad sales? They sign up with the radio, they sign up for X amount of time, they advertise for 3 months, they advertise for 6 months, they ghost them, stop paying their bill, and all of a sudden they can never get them back on the phone and never get the ads running again. Well, what do I say to them? Well, take me for a test drive. How many people bought advertising at the radio, on the billboard, the coupon book, the online directory? How many people bought advertising from you last year? They say 500, they say 100, they say 1,000, whatever the number is. Say, guess what? Take me for a test drive, send me 3 people. Here's what I'm going to do. I believe that advertising to profit is a superpower. So I will help them, and I'm going to implement an operating system so that their ads are going to be wildly profitable. Before you run an ad, generally what you want to do is have an operating system installed. And that's the best way to make the advertising work at a really high level. But at the end of the day, I say, okay, just give me an idea. You don't need to give me financials, but just give me an idea as to how much they're spending. And I will make sure that they never stop advertising with you. And by the way, give me a rough idea as to how much they're spending. Let's call it 10 grand. Let's call it 25 grand. Let's call it 100 grand. 100 grand is going to be a better client than a $10,000 advertising client. No doubt you guys get that, right? Because they got the $100,000 from somewhere. It's called profit. They've obviously got a good business going. And I say, so give me an indication of how much they're spending, 25 grand. I will work. I can't guarantee anything, but my goal, I believe advertising to profit is a superpower. I will embark on trying to get them to never cancel their ad with you, because I'm a huge fan of it and I advertise all the time. But I will also look to double their budget with you, because I'm going to make these ads wildly profitable. The end. So anyway, so that you got to get it. So take me for a test drive, and then I'm solving the biggest problem that they have, which is people advertising, doing it for 90 days and then ghosting them. So what do you think, Shoots?
Well, while we're on this
JB,
let's wrap this up with one last question. Hopefully we can keep it fairly under that fold. Advertising. You talk about advertising. Like, again, JV's fantastic, and people typically lead more with, I need to advertise. Again, advertising, marketing, two different things, but let's just stick with advertising, and just your thoughts on it.
Okay. Couldn't be a bigger fan of advertising, but it needs to. The problem is it gets treated as a shortcut by the landscaper, the roofer, like as though they're going to make all this money and all their problems are going to go away. Remember, they're looking for freedom, right? Does advertising provide them freedom? I would dare say it does the exact opposite. I said it a second ago, but what you need to do before you advertise, you got to make sure that they've got an operating system installed and they're running the business. Like, remember, McDonald's is part of an operating system. Controlling costs needs to be part of it, right? In my software, it's like the top thing. Why? McDonald's could spend as much money on French fries or Coca-Cola, burgers, or the milk for the milkshakes. They could spend as much money on French fries as they want. The truth, and by the way, never feel it like their P&L. You wouldn't even know that they're all of a sudden spending significantly more. The reality is that it's not that they don't spend an extra dollar on French fries. They don't spend an extra penny on French fries that they don't need to. Why? They have an operating system. Again, they could spend as much money on French fries as they wanted, and the P&L, nobody would, the naked eye, you'd look at their P&L and you would never know. But that's not the way that they do it at McDonald's, and that's not the way the big boys do it. They operate off of a operating system. So real quick flywheel. We've done this a lot over the podcast, but why does somebody advertise? Remember, generally it's a bit of a shortcut, and that's why it does not go well. But you just picture a clock out in front of you, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, etc., going back to 12. So at 12 o'clock, we've got freedom. Okay, how do they, and they don't use that word, but this is subconsciously what they're trying to get towards, right? Why does it provide them freedom? Because it generates leads. Why? To get hot prospects. Why? To get clients. Why? To get revenue, to get profit, to get cash. Profit and cash, two different things. To build a big business, to become independently wealthy. Let's assume I'm at 10 o'clock. Why? They want to become independently wealthy so that they become free, right? So they're trying to get the freedom. That's your flywheel. But when they spend 10, 25, 45 grand on advertising and it doesn't work, what happens? They get further away from freedom, not closer. Remember, when you earn if you have 20% net margins, if you earn $1, you keep how much? 20 cents. When you save $1, you keep how much? 100 cents. So if they just, instead of spending the 20 grand on the ad that doesn't work, if they just kept the 20 grand sitting in their bank account, they would be significantly better off. And by the way, how do they define freedom? Getting their kids to Disneyland. How much does it cost to take your kids to Disneyland? Let's assume 20 grand gets it done. Just instead of turning on the ad to get closer to freedom, which is really taking the kids for 7 days and the family to Disneyland for 7 days, just don't do the ad that was never going to work in the first place. Take your kids to Disneyland and they'd be significantly better off, right? That sounds good. But what they need is they need somebody like you, a Sherpa, a mentor, somebody to guide them. Remember, a real mentor can tell you what not to do. If you're not ready for advertising, then that's not that we don't want to advertise. It's that we're not ready to advertise. Remember, like I'm advertising right now. I advertise every day, all day, and I will continue to. And a funny saying, like everybody hates advertising until they need to sell their own car, right? Again, advertising to profit is a superpower. And I would encourage you to see it that way, right? But what is the average landscaper, roofer, butcher, baker, candlestick maker? What do they say? They say proudly, "Oh, I built my business on word of mouth and referrals," right? Well, okay, that's great. And I'll shake your hand on that. But you built a business that is 10% as big as they otherwise could have, right? Simple, and by the way, an example of advertising on a very low end scale. It is a painting company painting the house and putting a sign on the lawn. Or having a truck out the front that has, sign written truck that is like compelling sign writing, while they work and while they show up. What do you think happens? Neighbors drive by and they go, "Oh, guess what? I need a kitchen remodeled. I need my house to get painted. I need a landscaper too." Is that going to happen all the time? Hard no. But is it going to happen sometimes? Hard yes. So you got to get your advertising out there, right? But they're going to get referrals from the neighbors with 100% certainty. Remember, like if they only get 5 new deals, let's call them referrals, but like, results from that little sign on the front of the house, right? If each client is worth, let's just say $10,000 net, if they get 5 clients a year, what's that? That's $50,000 that they otherwise wouldn't have done. That that little lawn sign, which is a pain in the neck. They got to put it up. They got to take it down. They got to make sure that it looks right. They got to ask the homeowner if that's okay, etc. Right? It's a pain in the neck, and they're generally always okay with it, right? You got a business and you're trying to build it up. They will absolutely support that. Again, and they say no. By the way, be firm, but don't be harsh, right? But anyway, so. And it's just a process. Again, my operating system, it's small incremental changes in multiple areas simultaneously provides a compounding result, right? That sign might yield no clients, no clients, no clients, but then it yields 3 clients. And then it's no clients, no clients, no clients, and then it's 2 clients. Well, you got your 5 clients. Like a good neighbor program is one that I always promoted. So if you do have a client that does landscaping, let's call it home services, they're building kitchens, they're doing they're doing the kitchen, they're doing the renovation, they're doing the extension, they're building the patio, they're painting the house, they're landscaping, etc. It's just a good neighbor program. And the good neighbor program is simply this. They do 11 and they're doing the Joneses. They go 5 doors to the left, 5 doors to the right. We're doing the Joneses. Would you also like your landscaping done? You go to the other side of the road, 10 houses there. Okay. So that's 20 in total. Do your math. And by the way, are they all going to say yes? Hard no. Are 1 or 2 going to say yes with predictability? Guess what? You're now now you're already in the area. You're saving on gas. You're saving on staff. You're saving on a whole bunch of things because now you're in the same area, and it's off of and if you know anything about business, right, which you do, referral business is better than just cold business with predictability. It's like, again, what they want versus what they need. Your clients need a process. The Good Neighbor program is simply that. And by the way, maybe to that end, like when you're advertising, new opportunities will outpull improvement. Right. So translation, what's a new opportunity, a new website, a new sales system? Like you might create a new sales system for them, but instead of talking about increasing and the improvements, talk about how you're going to install a new sales system or a new funnel, right? Russell Brunson made hundreds of millions of dollars off of, taking something been around for 100 years and just kind of naming it and then promoting it and building software, etc. Right? The new funnel, the new marketing system, the new direction, the new strategy, the new tactics, the new products, the new AI installing the new AI scheduling system, social media system, etc. Right? So again, new opportunity, let's say, versus improvement. So like 20% more profit as an example. And I might just say this. So I said this last week, Shoots, but like I personally, because you're marketing, let's talk social media and let's just think the discipline of putting their message out there. Like one of the things that I would like to think that I demonstrate is consistency and discipline, right? Well, my marketing helps audiences, I think, show up at a higher level, right? So I demonstrate the thing that I ultimately want, business coaches and accountants and business brokers and hypnotists, the types of clients that we attract. You know what I mean? I demonstrate the thing that I want, the accountant and the business consultant and the business coach to come see me for, right? So like every single day, I'm helping people without fail. And I'd like to think I build a little bit of humor in it, right? Again, if you get my daily email, you know how I go about doing that. And remember, because the goal is it's not a big business. It's not, generational wealth, despite the fact that, yeah, that might be there. But really what I think the goal, what generational wealth, really what I think, if you break it down and you go one layer, two layers, three layers deeper, your goal is to have a good life. And then part of a good life for you is that you build a legacy and make things a little bit easier on your children. And by the way, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, Shoots, but that is a bad goal. If you take the struggle away from your children, you take all the magic away from your children. But what I try to demonstrate, like I said, I saw dolphin this morning. I'm out on my Sea-Doo, I'm out on my e-foil, I'm out surfing like, many a days. I'd like to think I'm demonstrating a good life, despite the fact that I work my absolute backside off and, I will do, 10 hours a day falling off a log. But a good life for me includes working hard and making a positive impact and doing my emails and doing this podcast and, helping my clients and speaking to them and getting on calls, etc. And maybe what I'm trying to, like, you want to make people envious of what you are and who you are, not what you have. Right. So again, you guys heard me say this a million times, but you go to your Facebook profile and you see the guy with the Lambo and the doors are always up. I think that they're making a mistake there, right? You want to make people envious of what you are and who you are, not your Lambo, not your car, not your XYZ, right? So maybe what I'm trying to say, Shoots, like demonstrate consistency in your marketing and your business as a business coach, and have your clients demonstrate consistency in their marketing and their business. And what happens is you'll attract the clients that we would, quote unquote, call consistent and disciplined. And the way you do that is, by demonstrating it, you attract it, right? It's the person that doesn't buy quickly can never get other people to buy quickly, right? This is one of the greatest ironies of all time, right? So anyway, demonstrate we always talk about this, right? Demonstrate a live weekly event, 52 weeks a year. 2 people show up, 5 people show up, 50 people show up. You put on the same show with the same level of content, the same passion, the same everything, discipline, consistency, etc. And I think what happens is the accountants, the advertising folks, the business brokers, the promotional companies we talked about earlier, and those types that you ultimately want to deal with, and you would quote unquote put as ideal clients, ideal partners, ideal joint venture partners, they start seeking you out. So anyway, Shoots, that's what I would say. You got to demonstrate it in order to attract it. But advertising, I think that's where we started there. Advertising to profit is a superpower. Your client should be advertising. You should be advertising, but it's got to be done in a clever way. By the way, maybe you shouldn't be advertising. Yeah, I need a starting line and a finishing line before I could give you that answer. But generally speaking, advertising is a really, really good idea. But when approached as a shortcut, it ends up going in the wrong direction. And that's why 80%, if not 95% of advertising falls flat on its face, and it just gets people further away from freedom instead of closer to freedom, which is what is their goal. So that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
What do I think? Folks, did you catch this? This is how you know Karl went down a rabbit hole. When he says, I think we started talking about advertising. And he doesn't remember what we started with at the end of the answer. That's how you know, folks. All right. On that note, let's we're gonna end on that. That was really good though. And I hope that everyone found as much value in that as I did. So thanks everybody for hanging with us on another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Here's the deal. If you want more of this every single day, as we just heard, Karl sends out daily emails packed with coaching strategies, client wins, and stuff that's actually moving the needle right now. Head to focus.com and get on the inside. It's where the real work happens. And hey, if this episode helped you, do us a solid, share with another coach who needs to hear it. Leave us a review if you're feeling generous. We're on a mission to impact as many coaches as possible, and your sharing the show makes that happen. And that is it for another week, folks. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.